Are you struggling to find your place on the ever growing, almost seemingly infinite spot on the digital shelf? Today's episode is for you. We've got Rob Hahn, the CEO of Pattern. We're going to talk today a lot about the evolution of the digital shelf, as well as, again, like I said, how to find your place on it and scale profitably while you're doing it as well. So, we're going to talk about going from 0 to 1 and also how Pattern can help you go from 1 to 10. Rob, I appreciate you coming on to talk to me today about anything and everything, basically, that we're going to be covering. So, again, I appreciate you being a guest and coming on to chat. Rob is from Pattern, and so I would love for you to give really a brief introduction into your time in the e-commerce world, your life at Pattern, but also a little bit more about how you got into the space. We can start with that.
Yeah, sounds good. Well, I've been with Pattern for 3.5 years. I started my career at Amazon. So I started as an intern at Amazon way back when. I think we had like 8 fulfillment centers back in the
Wow.
day. This is like early Amazon
Hmm.
years. No automation. We were using Unix-based systems in our warehouses. Not even like web UIs. No robots. It was just really hard. It was really fun. It was a great time to kinda grow up at Amazon because they were really in this, like, right I got to just be there through, like, this hockey stick of
Hmm.
growth. Amazon was really entrepreneurial at that time, so I was an entrepreneurship major in college. I never actually wanted to work at a big company, and Amazon got big while I was there. So it's just a really I'm very, very, very fortunate people took bets on me. I got some really big roles and some big responsibilities at Amazon at a very young age. I moved in the robotics space in 2015, opened up one of the first robotics sites for Amazon, got to go build some inbound automation within the warehouses at Amazon. And then I got my own building. So I was like, should have been illegal. This is like, I was 26 or something like that. And I had a 6,000 person, million square foot building, pumping a million units out a day, a million units in a day. So really just very fortunate. It's like the hardest job, super hard, but incredibly
Hmm.
helpful in just, like, being able to do a lot of, really fun stuff, right? So I got to do that. So I was there for 8 years, and I left to join a startup. I decided Amazon got too big. I was ready to try. So really small startup called Whitebox. I was there for 4 years as the COO. We kinda did everything in the e-commerce world, like ads, content, listings. We also did all the logistics and fulfillment. We were 3PL, e-commerce 3PL. And during COVID, right? It was a good time to be there. We sold the fulfillment side of that business in 2022, and I joined Pattern as the COO here, and I moved to Utah. And so I've been here for 3.5 years. I lead global operations for Pattern. I'm both kind of like we do 3PL services, but our core model is our biggest one where we actually buy and sell inventory and get people in
Right.
marketplaces. Generally, what Pattern does, right, that we work with brands that we generally don't launch a lot of new
Hmm.
stuff. We actually take brands and companies and products that have built, up and they've gotten from, like, 0 to 1, and we get it from 1 to 10, and we do that globally. We do it on all the different marketplaces. We're marketplace agnostic, and so, yeah, we work with a bunch of brands and, hundreds of brands, and, we went public in September, so that was a pretty exciting moment for us, as a company, but the mission stays the same.
Right.
Like, we call ourselves an accelerator, right? So that's what we do here at
Love
Pattern.
it. Yeah, no, I want to get into a lot about the digital shelf as well. I think that's a great term, and talk about how it's grown and how maybe some of the old ways of selling are not viable anymore or not as maybe practical even for some of the sellers. But I definitely want to get into the concept of how the digital shelf has evolved. I saw a few things while I was kind of reading up on this and trying to get ready for it. But one of the phrases that stuck out to me was the endless aisle. About how I think this was maybe even you guys had this somewhere on your site talking about it, but how the infinite shelf of the internet is it used to be a benefit, and now it feels like maybe it's a curse for brands that are attempting to maybe stand out or to be different from the rest of the pack. In your opinion, then, from that angle, what's the difference between a brand that is at that, like you said, 0 to 1? They're at that 1, and now they're at a 10. Is it just sales? What else is happening that is setting them apart maybe from other people in their space?
Yeah, I think it's a great question. I mean, if we, like, zoom it like, forget e-commerce for a minute.
Right.
Let's just talk about, like, commerce and consumer behavior. If we kinda zoom back and we think about, 20 years ago, well, I'm old now, 30 years ago, right?
I wasn't
Like,
around 30
I was
years
like,
ago, so yeah.
yeah, I was like, "Oh, shit." Yeah, but anyway, so, 30 years ago, 50 years ago, 100 years ago,
Mhm.
you have a consumer that goes into a Walmart or a local grocery store. Like, the retail motion was, like, send to either the actual company or, like, a distributor, right? And there's a limited number of
Mhm.
choices, right? So the store what a retailer is trying to do is they're like, "Alright, I want" let's just use laundry soap. I want to have 5 different laundry soaps, right?
Mhm.
Like, and so basically you're virtually or you're physically walking through an aisle where you see there's only so much shelf space, right? So I get to see the 5 and the choices that are there. I think one of the most interesting pieces of all of the retail shift in the last 20 years with e-commerce has been the explosion of choice. And with that, consumers have just they've gotten less, loyal. Like, you can
Yeah.
see this, like, generation by generation, like, our parents' generation, very loyal, right, in general, right? They care very much about, like, "Oh, I've used Tide my whole life. I'm gonna keep using Tide until the day that I die." Like, as we get toward younger generations, that is not necessarily true as much, right? And that's because product discovery has changed. You have stuff like social
Mhm.
selling. So, uh, I think the answer is a little bit different depending on the platform you're on, right? And I think that has also shifted, and that's different in the US or that's different internationally.
Right.
Like, a Chinese consumer is really different than a US consumer. But if we focus on a US consumer and we talk about what are they looking for that we don't necessarily have, like, what's changed a lot from that side? The difference between a you can get a product from 0 to 1 if you have great marketing, for example,
Mhm.
right? Like, if you spend the money, if it looks really pretty, the difference between 1 and 10 is a combination, I think, of 2 major things. One is your ability to have an actual good
Mm.
product. Like, that is it's an undervalued thing, because in the world where people have access to information like reviews and sales, Amazon, we use Amazon.
Mhm.
No other marketplace is different, but Amazon just so uniquely does, or I'm sorry, so profoundly does this. They're trying to present to a consumer what the highest likelihood and propensity to sell that thing. They do not care about your product. They do not care about you. They care about that consumer buying the thing. And so the better the product, higher likely it is to convert, the less likely it is to do a bad review, the less likely it is to do a return, and they want that to happen. So all of their algorithms are designed to do that. So you can get from 0 to 1 having a not great product, but having a really good marketing strategy. So number 1, you gotta have actually a great product.
Mhm.
The second thing is understanding the mechanics of that specific marketplace. And actually, most of that is very operational. I don't say like warehouse operational, that's certainly part of it. But it's, is the listing on? Are you in stock? And that's where you kind of collides with. I say it this way: in order to get from 1 to 10, you have to be world class at moving stuff and selling stuff. The selling stuff is the marketing side.
Mhm.
But actually, like, let's take Amazon for a second. You've have you do you buy stuff on Amazon?
Uh, I exist in the world, so yes. No, yeah, I do. I do.
Oh, like, are you a
Are
human,
you
right?
human? Right. Do
Yeah,
you like
so
music?
cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. So the
Yes.
difference between someone that is not Prime, for example, and
Right.
Prime is a massive lift in sales, right?
Mhm.
But there's also massive, lift, especially in recent years, between 2-day, 1-day, and same-day delivery, and that's actually your logistics strategy. So, you can have great marketing, you can spend a lot on ads, you can do all that thing,
Mhm.
but if you know you're competing with a logistics problem, that's why Amazon is so unique and so good compared to other marketplaces, is you're actually needing to be really good at both moving and selling stuff, and it's actually a logistics problem, which is less sexy, and people are like, "Oh, that's interesting," but, like, it's actually so real in making sure that the proximity of your product is the right amount of product, the right place, the right time, because they're not walking through a physical shelf anymore. That virtual shelf is actually physical warehouses, and it's actually an important logistics problem. So I think the difference between 1 and 10, just to kind of there's a lot of
No, yeah.
words, but, like, I think those are 2 things, right? You have to be able to sell stuff, and you have to be able to move stuff, and those are the differentiators.
That's a great answer. I very much encourage the lengthy, in-depth answers because the audience is sick of hearing me talk. So that when they hear someone else, it's a blessing for them. So yeah, no, I appreciate and it makes a lot of sense. You know, Amazon is the logistics king of moving things around. Walmart, you could argue maybe because they've got all those warehouses. You know, they've got however many stores, they've got however many warehouses across the country. Um, but it is something interesting to think about. That you're right. As a person that does not sell on Amazon, it's something to think about. As it, yeah, it doesn't matter if they like my product. If I can't get it to them in time, they're going to go with the other person. It's interesting. Right? I haven't thought about that as much as
Well,
I have the marketing.
and that's the thing, it's the loyalty, it's the
Right.
reduction of, like, "I'll wait for my
Hmm.
tide," is not it's just not much of a thing anymore,
Right.
right? There are and it's not maybe tide's a bad one because probably actually tide people are more loyal, but, like, maybe it's something like, electronics, maybe something that
Yeah.
is we'll try it out or whatever. There's millions of products, literally tens of millions of products that have a lower level of loyalty than they've ever had in the history of
Right.
retail, so it definitely is a big difference.
You kinda mentioned this too, but my kinda greatly transitioned to another question that kinda came up while we were talking here. The customer journey has shifted a lot as well with the whole coming of the social commerce and even just Amazon in general. Like you said, people aren't walking through a physical store anymore. So in this day and age, in 2025, 2026 now, sorry, I almost had a slip there. In 2026, how should a brand's digital identity maybe either shift or adapt or adjust to maintain consistency if their customers are finding them first on either one of their other spots or social media, or they're finding them first on Amazon. How can they balance that along with the two key factors of, like I said, of marketing, and also making sure that they're still getting the product.
Yeah, I think it's a really good question. I mean, brand consistency is it's such a it's a hard thing. I mean, think about this is what's been, I think, one of the more fun things for me to watch for brands to have to navigate. I know we talked about it, like, 30 years ago, brands would ship a pallet to a distributor, and that distributor then would get it to the store, and the marketing is like your marketing is like the box, right? Like, or some
Right.
coupons. It is so dramatically different in your brand voice, where you are, like, do you discount your products at all, right? We work with tons of brands that are like, "I can't work on TikTok because that is a discounting site, and, that one might not work for my brand specifically." And over time, it's like, actually, you have to be able to play in that space because it's a new where product discovery is happening. And so, I think ranging from distribution model to what is a brand mean to a consumer, every single brand and every single product within a brand portfolio has to have a different strategy than it's had in the past. It is just not the same thing that they had to solve in the past. And so I think it's less about consistency. It's about meeting that consumer on that platform where they are. Like, you have to understand that consumer, and you might have this thing stuck in your brain that, like, this is what a consumer wants when I walk past it on a physical shelf. That might be really different from a consumer on TikTok that is scrolling through and then sees an ad. That might be completely different brand presence that you need to have. So, you cannot have it's not that you wanna lose what your brand is, that's not what I'm saying in any way, but you need to understand that your brand needs to be viewed by the consumer in order to be able to do that in the way that they need to hear it, not the way you need to say it.
Right.
And I think that's a huge shift for brands, and it's not
These are
easy.
great answers, very introspective answers. One of the things I always say when I do these is I always want to learn something, and you've accomplished that already. So this has been great. But yeah, no, that it makes a lot of sense. Just again, like you said, thinking about it from a holistic perspective of not, I mean, marketing people are doing this time in and time out, right? Of just assuming what the customer wants and going for it that way. But you're right, there's a different approach to it. Also, something to think about, like you said, on the marketing side and the logistics side. Of course, the goal here is profitability, is revenue, is having good margins and doing it the right way and not just rushing to get to there and building it up to the point where you're doing it profitable, but you're maybe not just throwing money at the wall and hoping it sticks. And so, kind of on that line of thinking or that line of thought, there's a lot of brands that maybe are doing that. They're just throwing a lot of money at it. There's a new product launch. They say, okay, I'm just going to spend $1 million on ads and hope something works. And that doesn't exactly happen. Are there any other maybe silent killers of profitability that, to keep with our same example, that going from 1 to 10 that you have found helping your partners or that brands maybe don't know about, but that are like lurking in the darkness, so to speak, of
Yeah.
Amazon? Like what kills profitability for sellers going from 1 to 10?
Yeah, I think the answer it's doing really well in marketplaces is more formulaic than many of the traditional platforms that have existed in the world. Also, data is super critically important to understand where you spend and what it returns. Where am I putting money in? Where am I getting it out? What are the consumers actually responding to? What are they not responding to? Having an insane amount of data is something that we hang our hat on. It is a differentiator for us. We've got a bunch of first party data that we are collecting ourselves to be able to learn about consumer behavior across, you know, hundreds of thousands of SKUs and categories, etcetera.
Right.
So I think that actually that's an important piece is a lot of people end up guessing. Like, and you said it, marketers try to do this a
Right.
lot, right? They're sitting in a room, they're like, "I think this will
Right.
happen." For my team, I'll be like, "How do we reduce down the number of opinions we have?" That's actually a
Yeah.
goal, right? Like, if you like, I don't wanna have an opinion about that. I just want to look at the data and let the data guide
Love it.
us. And if we can remove opinions, then what that means is we can iterate and learn over time. So I think one of the killers is that I would just say the bigger thing, there's so many things that kill you on profitability. What gets you from 0 to 1 definitively will not get you from 1 to 10. And so we there's a million small things and light switches that we can talk about in there, but I think the biggest, like, aggregate thing is when people think that what has worked in the past is the thing that gets them to the next
Mhm.
level, it is the killer. That's true operationally, that's true structurally, that's true about your product, that's definitely true logistically, right? Like, you might be like, "Oh, my guy, Billy in the warehouse is great, he totally gets it." But if your volume 10Xs, your cost might 20x. That's just how it works. So I think logistics fulfillment is one of the biggest ones where people get punched in the gut. They have no idea what it is. It's less sexy. People that design products and build them are infrequently people that know how to move stuff around the world well. It's what one of our biggest
Right.
offerings is that we get to, like, nobody wants to spend time on logistics if they're the one that designed a product and has built it, right? Like, it's just there's almost no crossover. It's very so I think that is one that is really, really high. But I think in general, all of the tasks that need to happen, your team, your structure, your product teams, what's got you here is not going to get you there. And I think that is the most common thing where people struggle, or they end up spinning out, and it has impacts not only on your products but profitability as well, and in 100 different ways. It's usually not one big thing. Is my point. It's 100 small
Right.
things.
What is it? 100 pennies still equals $1 or something. There's a phrase in there, I'm sure.
Yes.
I've been changing a lot of my sayings to be food related. So I was trying to think of something that I could say because I instead of saying to kill two birds with one stone, you say you feed two mouths with one plate or something like that. A little bit more, I don't know. And instead of like there's like a million ways to skin a cat, which is such a crazy who says that? Such a crazy phrase. There's a million ways to cook an egg. I don't know if you've heard that in a while. The cat one is I heard that a lot as a kid. It's very interesting.
Well, yeah, I actually have not. I haven't heard that in a while, but I love looking up the origins
Yeah.
of, like, phrases like that, like, how the hell did that exist?
Who's
Like,
skinning
where did
cats?
that come from? Yeah, like, it's very gruesome for
Yeah,
no
it's a little
reason.
silly. There's a million categories to sell in on Amazon. We can say, yeah, to start a new brand in, we'll make it Amazon. Maybe I'll make it Amazon focus instead of in like for the business side of things. I'll switch that up. But yeah, no, it's a great answer. Like I said, I think about these things very. Maybe I think about it maybe too holistically where I want there to be one simple answer for things. But of course, there's never going to be, especially in the Amazon world. And I know that deep down somewhere that there's never going to be a simple answer for any of these questions that I ask any guest, but especially these very complex of, it's like asking, how do you sell on Amazon? And it's like, okay, well, do you have 3 days? Do you have 48 hours for me to go into all this information? Yeah, but we're 72 if you want to do the math right there. But yeah, it also kind of takes a look at again, I want to stick with this 0 to 1, 1 to 10 scenario. And I wouldn't be a good podcast host in 2026 if I didn't bring up AI a little bit. And
Yeah.
so with the dawn of AI, with I always mess this name up, but Nano Banana, I think that's right. The Google image creation and all the other millions. I don't have to give any specifics, but and all the other million AI tools out there. Where do you see AI actually moving the needle for e-commerce brands? Is it and we can break it down from the 0 to 1 category, but also I wanna hear, of course, the 1 to 10 category. of what is where do you see AI actually working for these brands?
Yeah, it's a good question. I mean, AI is an
Mhm,
incredible tool, but it is a tool. It is one of the tools. It is not a panacea. It does not solve every
mhm,
problem. It does not, with bad inputs, AI returns bad
right.
results because it does not actually create a thing, right? It derives something and then categorizes it and then tries to return something in a response, right? So like it is a tool to be utilized. And I think what the risk is, you talked first about the benefit. I'm actually gonna go
Let's
risk
do it.
first, is that people don't really understand when to use it, when not to use it, what its limitations are, what it's great at. It's incredible at categorizing data. It's incredible at categorizing data. It is amazing. It is not necessarily good at a bunch of other small tasks that need to happen yet, and that will get better and better over time. But I think that the most important thing is that brands, people, users of AI understand what it's good at, what it's not, when to use it and when not
Mhm,
to. It is the most important skill set because it is a tool. Sometimes AI is not the right answer. This is like automation or robotics in a warehouse, for example. Like it's not the answer a lot. AI will not be the answer a lot. When it is, it's all about let's break it apart. 0 to 1, right? The huge advantage that it has for a new brand is like higher quality assets for very little. You get to test stuff, you get to try
right.
stuff. You don't need to pay $50,000 for somebody to, do 17 pictures for lifestyle
Mhm,
photos. That kind of stuff to test and try is amazing, right? Like, that is so, so cool. What I will say, though, is generally those models, when you see them, it's hard for our brains still to look at them and be like, "I can't believe that's not real," right? But when you actually dig into it, if you have a product, if you have a specific
mhm,
thing, the brand matter, it cares a lot, right? Like, and that means the specific tiny details matter a lot. And if you're using like a generalized model that doesn't have great input data, it actually will not deliver something that is good enough to get from 1 to 10. And so you need to think about how are you getting better information, how are you getting those inputs better? For us, for example, we are the source material for the photos. We don't take an internet photo of a
mhm,
product and then we, and have them generate lifestyle photos for that. We're gonna take a photo of ours, a high quality photo of the actual product that we took because that it has high integrity of the
right,
product, and then we can put it in different areas. We spend a lot of money and time giving really good inputs because then the outputs are actually usable for a brand. Because great brands have great marketing, they have great
right,
packaging, they have great and they're super particular. A Nano Banana is fantastic at doing so many things. It will not get every single product detail correct. It misspells, it'll say the wrong thing, it'll get an ingredient wrong, and you can't have that wrong as you're thinking about scaling a brand
right.
and keeping it consistent. So, I think 0 to 1, incredible to try and test things in a way that we've never ever seen in the history of time. 1 to 10, it's all about the quality of the input and then being able to utilize the tool in the right place, at the right time.
Love it. Love it. You're gonna inspire me to start an e-commerce brand. I'm gonna use all this stuff and just launch, and then I'll be on Pattern. That's the goal. One day I'll be on
There you
Pattern.
go. Ill,
Yeah,
man.
no, you said it too. I had to one thing I focused on a personal note is I'm very Terminator with AI. I think it's gonna come and take us over, and it's gonna be a doomsday. I would like to be on the Elon Musk train of we're all gonna get, what does he say, high universal income or something. That'd be great. Would love it. I don't think it's gonna happen, but I would love to be wrong. I say that about a lot of things these days. Be like, I would like to be wrong about this, and AI is definitely one of them. But as someone that,
I think that's you getting older,
yeah,
by the way.
that's not good.
I think that's just as we age, yeah, like,
Right.
that's the thing, like, I'm like, I don't wanna get a new social media platform. Like, that's how I feel, right? Like, my here's the thing, I think to sum up, I think AI will be interesting in areas that we don't expect. Like, I think AI within the medical field is I'm so interested.
Yeah.
I think it's gonna be so
Yeah.
cool because oh my god, there's so many cool things that could be done for, like, humans and for, just incredible. I think where we think AI will be impactful, it will likely be less impactful, and where we don't really care about it as much, it's gonna be super impactful. That's kinda my so I think it's probably somewhere between you and
Yeah.
Elon Musk.
That's a
I think
good.
You saw
Those are 2
sure.
good, extremes, I guess, maybe, or 2 good ends to judge your your scale on. I would love it to be impactful in areas that are beneficial to people that don't and again, I say things like, "I don't want it to take jobs," and stuff like that, but people should learn to use it, and then they can better themselves at their job or something. I agree with that a little bit. But I saw something where they could identifies precancerous tumors, like, that'd be great. Do that all
Yeah,
day, please.
how
Yeah.
yeah, here's the thing that I think you need to fight. This is what I say this to my team all the
Mhm.
time. I imagine when the car became popular, you know who hated that probably? Wagon wheel manufacturers. They had to
Yep.
hate it. They were like, "This is
Mhm.
stupid. I don't wanna lose my job. I'm the biggest wagon wheel manufacturer in the
Right.
world." And, like, the reality is we had to have the wagon wheel guys go out of business
Yeah.
because like, we don't want wagons. So how do we find the balance of, like, how do we make sure that the car gets invented and then it changes the world? And how do we make sure that the wagon wheel manufacturers and the employees that are doing that start making tires and start working on an assembly li like, I think that I think we, like, blow this up in our brains a lot, but I think the reality is somewhere between the 2 things, the human condition has we will innovate. That is the hope. It's hard for us to think separately. So I actually don't foundationally disagree with you. I just come back to the wagon wheel guys and, like, I don't care about the wagon wheel
I like
guys.
that.
Like, I
I
just
like that. I would have used, I think, horse breeders instead of wagon
we
no, but
still
yeah,
have a lot
and
of
there still are a
horses.
lot of
We
horses.
don't still have
Yes.
wagons, right? Like,
The
it's
horses are fun. They're good, they
I
move to parades instead of for transportation. It's fun. It works. But yes, no, that's great.
right.
I think it's the same thing with we're obviously I think the biggest now we're getting into AI, but I think the biggest opposal, and that's not the right word. The biggest opposition to this is graphic designers. And yet when people were doing this by hand back in who knows when, and then the computer came along and graphic and Photoshop and all this stuff came along, it was probably the same outrage. And now I can't imagine doing it doing any kind of image work without a Photoshop or without a computer. And if you're right, if we didn't invent the computer, where would we be? Maybe we'd be actually be better, but that's a different debate. If we never had
I
the
mean,
internet, but maybe not.
no, have you seen these pictures of, like, NASA back in the day, for example?
Oh
Like,
yeah,
they're doing
hand.
rooms for
Yep.
people doing calculations by hand, and they were people that computed, by the way,
Right.
computers, right? Like, they were computing the math for
Right.
NASA, and, like, it's an incredible difference because the speed so yes, we obviously have to move forward. It's an incredible tool. It does not fix everything. It is not gonna take every
Right.
job. It's not gonna solve every problem. It's really good at some stuff. It's gonna be terrible at other stuff. And I'm probably closer to you that maybe, like, it's not gonna take over the world and kill us Terminator style, but it's probably not as cool as we think it's gonna be.
Right.
So somewhere between.
Hopefully in the middle. Hopefully that's where we end up landing. So,
That's the hope.
Rob, this has been a wonderful episode. I'd like to always kind of ask one last sort of question. We're at the precipice of 2026 here. We just got into it. We're 8 days in. Uh, in 2 years, where do you think the digital shelf discussion will be? Or kind of on the AI topic, what do you think we will be obsessed with or that will be irrelevant or one thing that maybe we're not talking about enough today? This is sort of a very broad question for you, but really just what are you projecting or what are you guys a pattern maybe thinking is going to happen for the 2026 year for the digital shelf, for e-commerce, and what maybe might go out of style?
Yeah, I think how I'd answer this question actually, one of my I don't always quote Jeff Bezos, but when I do, it's one of a few of
Mhm,
them. I think my favorite Jeff Bezos quote is, he actually talks about focusing on what doesn't change instead of focusing and trying to anticipate what does.
mhm,
And so he's got this quote, basically, I'll summarize poorly probably, but like 10 years down the road, what's not gonna change? Consumers will want good products, they will want fast shipping, they will want lower prices. And if you look at like what the foundation of Amazon is built on, it's really about things that don't change. And then you can screw around, you can try things that are like focused on that. But like, I think my answer to you actually be like, what doesn't change in 2 years? People want great products. They want low prices. They want fast shipping. They want, right?
right,
Like free shipping. There's all these things that don't change. And that's why I come back to like AI as a tool. I can't see the future that I think AI probably I don't know. I don't know if I can say this. This is Rob's opinion, not Pattern's opinion
yeah,
necessarily. I think that probably there's some overhype and some like bubble around what AI because people are still figuring out like how can it be used? How can it
right.
be, you know, yeah. optimize, etc. So I think AI probably calms a bit in the next couple of years, and as we get focused on where it can be utilized. But I think the things that don't change are the things that consumer behavior uh, we've seen the last 10 years. I don't think the things in the next few years are going to foundationally change there. So if I'm a brand, if I'm a builder of something, my focus is on how do I see through some of the noise and focus on building a long-term thing that adds value forever, right? Like that, or as forever as we can see into this future. So I think 2 years from now, Amazon will keep being a winner. Walmart hopefully gets a little bit
Mhm.
better. I think the interesting thing to watch trend wise would be social selling in the US. We've seen TikTok Shop grow really fast. Can they keep up that pace? Does the American consumer want the same thing as a Chinese consumer or another international type of consumer? I actually don't know. I was gonna say I don't think so, but I don't know that I need to have an opinion on that, but I think it'll be an interesting trend to watch. But regardless, if they're discovering in a new place, you know what they still want? Low prices, fast shipping, free shipping, right?
Right.
So, like, those things will not change.
Right. Wow, that's a great answer. It's a lot of great answers today, Rob. So I really appreciate you being a guest. For all of you watching, I will have Rob's LinkedIn and Pattern's homepage down below in the description. Make sure to connect with Rob and check out Pattern if you're in need of a great company to be your digital shelf. Rob, again, really appreciate you coming on. This was a great episode. I'll have to have you back to discuss something, maybe something big in AI happens and we can come back on and have a separate podcast. But no,
Really,
I really appreciate you being a guest today. This was an amazing, amazing episode.
thank you for having me. I'd love to have you back anytime.
Perfect. Sounds good. All right. And thank you all for watching. I am your host, Velocity Pete, and we will see you next week.